I grew up in a small country town with my parents, my younger brother Paul, and my little sister Jenny. I was 16 at the time, and being older than my siblings, they formed a bond so close because of their age. Paul was 10 and Jenny was 8, so there was a bit of an age gap between myself and them. Jenny was a beautiful child with big blue eyes and long silvery blonde hair. She didn't look like any of us. We were all dark hair, dark eyes. Jenny and Paul did everything together, and as happens, Jenny being so fair and so pretty and so different from the rest of us, she was spoilt by all family members. It didn't bother me, as I was at the age of wanting to hang out with my friends, so I wasn't spending as much time with my brother and sister. I was glad they had each other. I came home from school one day, surprised to see 2 strange cars in the driveway. I immediately felt a sense of dread, and I didn't know why. I walked in the house to see my mother sobbing and my father holding her, and I could see his face was white and that he had been crying too. The 2 other people in the house were a male and a female, and it turned out they were police officers. I knew something dreadful had happened, but I didn't know what. I ran to my brother's bedroom and I could hear him crying too, and my parents were still talking to the police. I knelt beside his bed and yelled at him to tell me what was going on, what had happened. He just screamed, "Jenny is dead." I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I fell back onto the floor. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. Paul went on to say that Jenny had been hit by a car not too far from our home and was killed instantly. The shock just ran over me in waves, and all I could do was hold on to my brother and cry with him. Our parents eventually came into the room and told us that Jenny had run out onto the road to grab her hat, her favourite hat. She never went anywhere without that hat if she could help it. It had blown off in the wind, and a speeding car came and crashed right into her. Jenny didn't stand a chance. Our beautiful Jenny, gone. The funeral was very hard. All our family and friends were there, along with so many other people I had never met. We went back home to a house of sadness and silence. No more Jenny running around singing and laughing. Paul was inconsolable. Time went on, and about a year after this tragedy, I came home from school, and as I opened the front door, I could hear a little girl's laughter. I thought it may have been the TV, so I took no notice of it. But as I headed towards my bedroom, the laughter became louder, and what was more alarming and chilling were the words I heard next. It was my brother Paul saying in a whispered voice, "Jen, not so loud. Keep it down. We have to keep this a secret." Then he too giggled. I was shocked because I distinctly heard the laughter of a little girl. I barged into Paul's room only to see him there alone, sitting on his bed with a smile on his face, as if nothing had just happened. I asked who he had been talking to, but he said he hadn't been talking to anyone, and it must have been my imagination. I knew it wasn't. I spoke to my parents about it later that night, and they just smiled and said they too had heard Paul talking with someone who sounded like Jenny, but they just put it down to his imagination, and that he was using a high-pitched voice to make it sound like Jenny. So Maybe he could keep her alive in his mind. They just let him go along with it. I wasn't happy about this, but as I was only 17, I didn't make the decisions in the house. I decided to try and ignore Paul and his games with our deceased sister. As my bedroom was next to Paul's, I could hear the laughter every night and whispered conversations between Paul and a female voice, a voice that sounded so much like our Jenny. I must admit I was frightened and concerned. One night, the whisperings and noises coming from Paul's room became so loud that I got up and swung his bedroom door open to see if I could talk sense into him and make him understand that Jenny was gone, that he would see her one day again, but not for a long time, and that he would always have his memories of her, that we all missed her. I was also selfishly thinking that this should be my parents' job. As I entered his room, I instantly shivered with cold. His bedroom window was wide open, and it was winter time. I could see a distinct whitish shadow sitting next to Paul, but I could not make anything further out of that shadow. Paul was sobbing and kept begging Jenny not to go. He didn't want to lose her again. I just stood there open-mouthed, not knowing what to say, when all of a sudden I felt a warm touch on my waist. My hair blew in a wind that wasn't there. It was like someone was blowing on my hair, exactly what Jenny used to do after I had washed and dried my hair. The bedroom lamp flickered twice, then the cold just went and the room was warm once again. The window slammed shut. All on its own, and that is when I realised that it wasn't Paul's imagination. Jenny really was coming to visit him, and she must have realised that it was her time to go, so she had come to say goodbye to Paul. It all hit me instantly. I sat on Paul's bed and hugged him. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. He looked at me with his big brown eyes and said, "She's safe and happy now, isn't she?" I nodded and wiped his tears away. We never spoke of this to our parents, and Paul and I never spoke of it again either. But every now and then, when we were home to visit our parents, we would just look at each other in silence and a smile at the secret we will always keep between us, and will never tell our mother, as we know that she would never have been able to cope with this. We still visit Jenny's grave, and encased in glass is her beloved hat that she tried to rescue that day. A little crumpled, but we decided to leave it like that. Goodbye, sweet Jenny. You will never be forgotten. I'd also like to add that my brother Paul had a daughter of his own, and he called her Jen. Not Jenny, just Jen.